Folks, if you've listened to the Heard Tell program, you've heard our friend Gabriella Hoffman, but you need to make sure you're checking out her podcast, District of Conservation. It's a podcast exploring the nuances of true conservation efforts from DC and beyond. From topic discussions to exclusive interviews with conservation and energy newsmakers, Gabriella keeps listeners appraised of the latest news stories while elevating important voices. Listen to the District of Conservation on Apple Podcasts or wherever podcasts are played.
Brace yourself for something fuel-nominal. Unleaded 88 is the clear fuel choice. It's cheaper, cleaner, and greener. And it's grown by Iowa corn farmers. Now that's totally worth the hype. So pump it up with Unleaded 88.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on his shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding or a belt slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Grainger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome back to Heard Tell. This is fun. We love having her on here. She has become our go-to when it comes to healthcare policy because that's what she does. She works in that field. She explains it so well that even I can understand it. Elise Amez-Droz, back on the program, Young Voices contributor. How are you, my friend? Great to see you again.
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. You got in the Wall Street Journal. Way to go. I'm still waiting on my call from them. Open DMs. I'm available. There's really two parts to this story that you're covering. One's going to get the headlines and the trending topic, and the other one is actually a more universal problem, but they both converge here. The Senate has a bill. This is a bipartisan bill. Rand Paul and Cory Booker, usually not two guys you would normally associate with each other. They're pretty much as different can be on a lot of levels. They came up with this FDA Modernization Act. Now, as we all know, names of bills means absolutely nothing. This was actually kind of pretty close, though. It is a modernization of the FDA, and this is pointing to something from the 30s that does need modernized. Before we get into it, in a perfect world, if we take it at face value, what is this bill supposed to do?
This bill is simply there to end the mandate that pharmaceutical drugs be tested on animals before human trials. So if it all goes well, it will simply say pharmaceutical companies are welcome to use animal testing or another way of demonstrating that a drug is safe before they start administering it to people to proceed with the trials.
Now, this is a mandated law. It goes back to 1938. They're just removing the mandate if they don't tinker with this too much, trying to get it passed.
Correct. Yeah, this is not a ban on animal testing. I'm sure lots of people would like there to be a ban. Animal lovers don't like the fact that we can't test on animals, but this is, again, bipartisan bills are not that exciting because it just means everyone kind of agrees. Here's just saying, hey, this is an outdated mandate. Like you said, 1938, the Congress ordered that animal testing be part of those trials or precede human trials. And now that we've developed much better technology to test drugs, we no longer need to rely on human testing, on animal testing to be able to test the safety of a drug before we administer it to people. So we're just saying, you do it, you don't do it, it doesn't matter to us as long as the drug's safe.
Yeah, we'll touch on the animal testing part because that's the one that probably that's the one that's going to trend on Facebook. It's like, oh, let's talk animal testing because people react to that strongly. Big picture wise, and you do a good job of laying this out in the piece. Can we just stop? Because we skip over numbers and don't. 1938, it's 2022, and we're just now looking at this law. How many laws are on the books like this from the 1930s? We dealt with another guest yesterday. We were talking about a law back from the 1880s that was put into effect to we covered it out in Colorado where they were trying to shut down a Rocky Horror Picture Show with a law from the 1880s about, public nudity. This is way more widespread than people realize. Is like we have all these zombie laws on the books that just go and go and go because nobody ever updates them. That's actually a more universal problem and something that is in the purview of Congress and state legislatures to do. They don't do it very often.
Right. And I will put that out there first. I have nothing against old laws. I think laws should actually last a long time because it's hard to pass a law. It's hard to implement it, and it affects lots of people, right? So we want good laws to be passed and then to be there so that we can rely on them. The problem is when a law is so specific that it mandates the use specifically of a technology that's going to be out of fashion, outdated very quickly, then we waste our time, and actually we can have bad consequences come from those laws. In this case, the mandate to do animal testing first, as we were just talking about, huge impact on animals. But then also, as it turns out, animal testing is less and less a good way of testing the drug's safety. And as it turns out, many drugs that do well in animals are actually toxic for humans. So what made sense at the time was a technology that was all we had, right? In the 30s, all we had was animal testing. We barely had human blood testing, right? So the science then was so primitive compared to what we have today. But by enshrining the very specific technology that drug companies have to use into law, we end up with an outdated law like that we can repeal finally, hopefully, decades later. So that's the issue, is when we try to be so specific about the technology and the particulars of a process that we run into those issues of outdated, harmful laws.
Elise Amez-Droz joining us. Just to put it in perspective, though, you just brought this up. Medical science changes really, really fast. 1938, we're not using penicillin yet, widespread. We know what it is, but it hasn't been fully approved until the mid-40s. This is an area where it really shows out that laws are not updated, though, because something like just go back to COVID 2 years ago, how much medical science has changed and our perception of it has changed. These are things that just doesn't get talked about. But when you go into something specific, it usually is some kind of a mass thing, like an animal testing, something that gets the collective conscious going. And then all of a sudden we pay attention to these kinds of laws. That always seems to be how it works. And I guess that's just part of human nature. But it is a way that we need to kind of review our laws of, like, maybe it shouldn't take something that's a hot button issue to get something that's really important, like updating FDA guidance, which we all saw what happens when FDA guidance isn't clear, and these sorts of things.
Exactly. Like this law here, the proposed law, the FDA Modernization Act 2.0, what it would do is it says you can use computer models, or you can use organs on chips, and I can talk more about those, or you can use another way that works, right? It's not specific, it's not exhaustive. I think that's a great way of legislating, because you're keeping it open for innovators to do what they do best, which is develop the next best technology. If you can do that, you obviously need laws. We don't want a total lack of laws, especially when it comes to things as important as drug testing. But you can actually phrase it in a way that's broad enough that anyone can try something new, and that's the goal here with this bill.
Yeah, let's just deal with the animal testing part for a minute. Look, I have 5 dogs, a cat, and multiple children. I'm an animal lover by any definition you want to be. I love animals. I got a rescue that we're medically healing right now, getting ready to have surgery. I had a dog at the vet this morning. Okay, I like animals. The animal testing is always going to be icky, even for people who think it's a scientific necessity. We understand that has been abused over the years, but on the whole, we understand. Yes, you need a living being to test some of this stuff out on before you go to a human in most cases. But like you said, some of that's changing. We can artificially create organs now. We can artificially test things. We can use computer modeling. Some of this has changed, but some of this is still, you're going to have to put this in a living organism and see what happens. How do you deal with that part of it? I know it's a big issue. I know we have all kinds of organizations about animal testing. How do you deal with something that's at some part, it's still going to be a scientific necessity for the near future?
I think there's part of it, you just have to accept that that's how it is, right? We still, as a society, value human life probably above, definitely above animal life. So to the extent that those tests do help people, they will be around. Now, I think this type of law change is exactly what's going to get us out of the reliance on human this is exactly what's going to get us out of animal testing, because you're allowing those smaller innovators, it's maybe biotechs, or I think biotechs are among those that are most excited about the potential of this law passing. It's biotech that are most interested in getting this law changed because they have other ways of testing drugs than animals. So organs on chips are a new technology. They're completely made, in a lab. It's a synthetic device that imitates an organ. So for instance, a lung, you can have a little piece of plastic of sorts that breathes and that functions like a lung, and you can test different compounds on an illness inside that and see how a real lung would react. This has become so powerful that you can really make great progress before you take that drug to human trial. Same thing for computer models. They've become really good at testing different things. So this is how you get out of it. You can't eliminate it right away, I don't think, unless you really have the will of, all of Congress, or, a majority and more, to get that the idea of animal testing, banned. But you can still quickly eliminate it by allowing innovators to be innovative. The amazing thing about moving away from animal testing is that it's much cheaper to do it that way, right? Like, you can imagine that animal testing is very pricey to do. You have to have all the animals on hand. You have to take care of them, have to have be compliant, because there are obviously lots of rules around how you do the testing. Those things are very expensive and complex. So they keep out smaller entrants from the biotech space. And by removing those mandates, you can actually allow more entrants to come in, more competition, that becomes cheaper. And who doesn't want, right, a cheaper drug? I think there's such a high demand for more affordable drugs right now. So when you make the process less expensive, you actually drive the market in that direction, because the bigger players that are going to want to continue to do human testing, they actually won't want to do it anymore, to the extent that they have cheaper ways of doing it. So I think this can really be eliminated through competition.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
At Baker's Pharmacy, care is what's most convenient for you. Care is being here when you need us. We're open evenings and weekends. Care is helping you save more. Most insurance plans and discount cards are accepted at your local Baker's Pharmacy. Care is saving you time by managing your prescriptions online. You can request refills, check order status, and more. Care is convenience that works for everyone. Baker's, a world of care is in store. Services and availability vary by location. Age and other restrictions may apply. For coverage, consult your health insurance company. Visit the pharmacy or our site for details.
Yeah, Elise Amez-Droz joining us. There's another component to this, and you talked about the cost of it. The reason these drugs are so costly is because the R&D is astronomical, and some of that's regulation. We've talked to you about that before, and we'll debate it some other time. But on top of that, and on top of the moral argument, there's a thing about doing these drugs where it just takes forever to get it through the R&D and the process, and then the approval process with the FDA. Part of removing these mandates, this will also speed up getting these drugs through the process, not in an neither one of us can talk today, not in an irresponsible way, but just by removing a layer of testing, or maybe allowing a technology that's a little bit faster and a little bit cheaper. This also speeds up a process that, for far too many people that are waiting on the next wonder drug or the next miracle drug, maybe years or even a decade away. This speeds up the process, doesn't it?
It does. It makes the process smoother, less expensive, just faster. That's one big advantage. The other advantage, and this is something that I don't think gets a lot of attention, but when you start human trials, people start taking the drug, right? You have the placebo group that thinks they're taking the drug. I mean, they are not actually. And then you have the people who are really trying the drug. And in any case, when the drug doesn't turn out to be powerful, and maybe when it turns out to be toxic, you've given hope to all these patients that a drug is making it to human trials. Like, people are expecting something to happen, and they can get very excited at the prospect of finally finding relief. And I think by encouraging innovators to get in this space, because it's now less expensive, you have more patients that are going to be able to access drugs that potentially work. And I think that's really exciting too.
Yeah, Elise Amez-Droz joining us. I think you're in part to this piece. Again, it's in the Wall Street Journal. We're going to link to it. Read the entire piece. It's excellent. I think you bring up, going back to that wider point about regulation for just a second, I'm going to quote you here. You say, this mandate should serve as a cautionary tale, enshrining state-of-the-art technology into laws risks undermining the development of a better method. We should take the long view legislating. I doubt anybody in 1938 thought it would be 2022 before anybody reviewed this law. We see this in other areas. We see this with the EU doing the USB-C mandates. We see it in the medical field. We saw it during COVID, where we found out, hey, maybe some of that mandated stuff doesn't really need to be mandated if it's an emergency. You can pick anything you want. It's a general problem we have is we want to legislate for the now without the long view in mind. That really is a good lesson to take from this, beyond the animal testing and beyond the length of, these quote unquote zombie laws that stay on the books for years. We just don't do a real good job of unintended consequences and what a law may look like 20, 30, 40 years from now, do we?
We sadly don't. And this is really my wider point, and maybe something that I care about people taking away from this story, is we can always do better when it comes to legislating for future generations. We have to believe that people are going to come up with better ways of doing things than we currently have now. And we also want to keep the economy dynamic. There's no reason for us to protect the current industries, and that's usually where those laws are from, right? Like, there is an industry around specific mandates, and they will lobby for those mandates to be included in law because they profit from there being a mandate that benefits them. And so the more we move away from this highly specific, technology-specific language and toward a more open model of innovation and a more flexible, way of competing, we actually end up with better laws and a more dynamic economy that allows everyone to come in and innovate and flourish.
Yeah, and if there's one sector of society and technology that you do not want to stagnate, it is medical technology, because you need it to continue to grow and push boundaries and find cures for. Look how far we've come on so many medical fronts. And unfortunately, during COVID, people started pulling back a little bit, and now we're seeing what happened with things coming back. You never want to stagnate with medical stuff, so it's very important our government doesn't do that as well. Elise Amez-Droz, always love having you. You explain this stuff way better than I can, and I always learn something talking to you. This is a great piece. You're right. This is a bigger issue. I look forward to you writing and covering some more. So until we get you back on Heard Tell again, let folks know where they can keep up with you. This piece will be in the Wall Street Journal, but let them know what else you have going on as well.
Absolutely. So currently I'm studying single-payer systems around the world. So this is going to be my next focus for a little bit. But in the meantime, you can catch my writings on LinkedIn. Simply, that's the only place I am active on social media. And my name is Elise, Elise, and last name is Amez-Droz.
Yep. And for those of you like me who have trouble with silent letters, it's on the lower third graphics on the YouTube. We'll also link to it in the notes for all the podcasting folks. Elise, always enjoy our conversations. Look forward to having you back soon. Thank you for the time, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Folks, if you've listened to the Heard Tell program, you've heard our friend Gabriella Hoffman, but you need to make sure you're checking out her podcast, District of Conservation. It's a podcast exploring the nuances of true conservation efforts from D.C. and beyond. From topic discussions to exclusive interviews with conservation and energy newsmakers, Gabriella keeps listeners appraised of the latest news stories while elevating important voices. Listen to District of Conservation on Apple Podcasts or wherever podcasts are played.
Religion is at the intersection of our 21st century life, even if we don't express a faith. At a time when it seems that religion isn't as prevalent as it once was, it still leaves its mark everywhere. As a pastor, I know that religion isn't something I just do on a Sunday, but it's found in every nook and cranny of my life. Sexuality, politics, social media, the economy, war, nationalism, all have some kind of religious angle to them. And as a communicator, I want to find the stories that can help people understand this part of our society that is so important to so many. Hi, I'm Dennis Sanders, and I'm the host of Church and Main. Church and Main is a podcast about the journey of faith and where it intersects with modern life. I look at faith with a journalist's eye, asking the who, where, what, why, and how religion affects some of the major issues of the day. Join me as we journey together. You can listen to Church and Main podcasts at the website churchandmain.org or on your favorite podcast app. I look forward to seeing you.